Hey everyone, and welcome to another Yogi Misfit Session. My name is Danny Pomploon, and I'm your host. Welcome to episode 35. On today's show, I have Darren Main. He is a yoga author. He's a yoga teacher. He's well known for a bunch of his books that he has out, Yoga and the Path of the Urban Mystic. Today, we're going to talk a little more about one of his other books, the Yogi Entrepreneur. He just redid it because obviously, things have changed. And so it's a great reference tool on just where to get started if you want to do yoga full time, if you want to teach. And it gives you a really good backbone on things to research. I enjoy talking to him so much. He's got a lot of just wise words as he's been doing this for a bit. So I hope you enjoyed the show. And of course, if you do enjoy the show, please make sure to leave a comment or a review and to tell your friends about it. All right? Hi, Darren. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Danny. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I can't complain. I had my first rainy day with my son snuggled up in bed with me this morning, so it was perfect.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We haven't gotten rain in a little while, so it's nice to actually have some.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm really excited.
I'm super stoked that you're on the show. It was a little bit of a minute to buckle each other down because we're both so busy, but I'm really, really glad to have you here. So I'm gonna dive right in, Darren. So you've written a ton of books. You teach a ton of yoga. You've been doing this for how many years?
Oh, I've been doing yoga for like 30 years now.
Okay, but how if you're only 25?
Yeah, that's just all a Botox.
Well played.
No, I can't afford Botox on a yoga teacher salary.
I know, I get it. So you've been doing yoga for like 30 years, and you started writing yoga books. Like, when did your first yoga book actually come out?
Well, my first book was not technically about yoga, though that was certainly a big part of it. It was about the Wizard of Oz as a sort of spiritual metaphor. And that came out in 99. And then my Urban Mystic book came out in 2000. So they came out pretty back to back, 2000, 2001, in that area. So yeah, the Urban Mystic's been out for a long time. It's in its fourth edition now.
Awesome. And now so you just recently rewrote the Yogi Entrepreneur, right? You gave it a little beef up.
Yeah, I just lost you for a second.
I said you just recently started working on your newest edition of the Yogi Entrepreneur, yeah? You gave it a little beef up.
Yeah, I just released it and I finally got it out as an audiobook, which makes me so happy. I when I became a dad, like my time for reading, I'd have time at night and then I'd fall asleep like one page in. And so I started getting really into audiobooks and doing the dishes and doing the laundry and everything, listening to books on yoga philosophy and stuff. So I was sort of committed this year to get all my books out as audiobooks, and I've only got one left. But
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, getting Yogi Entrepreneur out was particularly important to me because I feel like yoga teachers really there's so much that goes into being a yoga teacher that isn't in the classroom and that isn't covered in teacher training. How do you market yourself? How do you engage your students in this new world of Twitter and Facebook and podcast? Good job, Danny, by the way. How do you engage people and take what could be a major distraction and do a little yoga jujitsu and turn it into something that inspires people instead?
So when you started pulling it together, like, where did you get all the ideas as far as like what was actually going to be in the book? Like, was it stuff that you felt like you had questioned when you were first teaching yoga and you were like, okay, well, if I have these questions, I'm sure other yoga teachers have them as well, or how did you combine everything?
Well, when I write a book, what I do is I pick a person that I sort of visualize myself talking to. I know it sounds corny, but it works.
Hmm.
And so, like for my Yellow Brick Road book, I visualized talking to my mom, and I thought, how would I explain like yoga philosophy and mysticism to my mom without using any weird Sanskrit words?
Hmm.
And using the language that she's familiar with, which is the Wizard of Oz. And so I just sort of, as I wrote it, I sort of thought, how would I explain this to my mom? and
Right.
and with Yogi Entrepreneur, I sort of visualized me getting into a little time machine and going back and talking to myself, my 20-year-old self, just getting started as a yoga teacher, and saying, like, hey, would you like a little advice? And it
Right.
is basically based on all the mistakes that I made, and also my observation of the changing world of yoga. When I started teaching yoga, no one had a website, no one had email. Certainly, Twitter wasn't anywhere on the horizon, and
Right.
cool yoga teachers like Danny Pamplun weren't doing podcasting. So it was just a very different type of world, and so it's part like stuff that is sort of eternal, and like and some stuff that's just new and ever changing, and that's why there's three editions in a couple of years. The ink's barely dry, and I have to update it to keep up with the times.
What was the hardest part about writing the book?
I think that some of it is just admitting how how much I screw up. And also recognizing as I'm writing this book, this is my ideal, right? This is how I would like to run my yoga business, and really tweet on a regular basis and keep up with my podcast and do all of these things that are, I think really important and essential. And then life comes into play. Like my mom and my brother came to visit last week, which was awesome, but it took this big chunk out of my computer time and my time to like do my non-teaching work. And so I think it's a big part of it is recognizing it's like all aspects of yoga, just that it's about self-acceptance. Like we do what we can do. And some days we have more to give than others. But as I'm writing the book, I'm thinking, I'm such a hypocrite. Such a hypocrite.
What so you said you were just saying right now like it's admitting like some of your like the things that you messed up on. Like what do you think was like the biggest mess up?
I think if I could pin it down to one thing, it was my ego in the beginning. And when I teach in teacher trainings now, both the yoga tree teacher training and like I spoke to your group via Zoom or something.
Yeah.
Um, when I speak to new fledgling teachers, I always say it took me years to figure out that I am the bell, I'm not the dog food, and people look at me like I'm crazy. And then I say, just like Pavlov's dog, he heard the bell and he heard the bell and got to eat dog food. He heard the bell and got to eat dog food, and then he started salivating when he heard the bell. I
Right.
think people come to yoga and they feel really good or they feel better. They get some sort of reprieve from the crazy that is their life or the suffering that they might be enduring in their life at any given moment. And they
Sure.
feel better. They feel safe. And we live in a world that is sort of like the mirror image of what we try to create in the yoga space. And then but then they start to associate the benefits of yoga with me. I'm the bell. I just happen to be there, lucky enough to witness it happening, and
I
and
see.
they
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
to treat you as if you've got some magic voodoo power or something that you know, and it's an understandable mistake for them to make. We all
Hmm.
make it. I remember the way I used to look at my first yoga teacher. You know.
Right.
Um, but I think when we as teachers start to believe that, it's like a sand pit. It's just really hard to get out of, and it usually takes some real public humiliation to 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 recognize that, wow, I am human and I mess up. And the more I think I'm perfect, the more I mess up. The more you can say, I'm sorry and I made a mistake, the better off you seem to be. But we tend to want to live up to those false ideas that students have about us.
How do you share that in your book?
Well, I have a whole chapter about your greatest resource is yourself. And
Okay.
basically, I sort of follow the Dale Carnegie model, and talking about how the things we teach in yoga, new teachers always focus on, did I get my alignment right? Was my sequencing okay? To which I say, who cares? I mean, no, you don't want to injure people. Alignment and sequencing and all of that's very, very important. But if you can't hold space for people, if you can't empower people and lift them up, and to the degree you are teaching from your ego, saying, look how great
Mm-hmm.
I am.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, you didn't tell me how great I am. You didn't put lotus flowers at my feet yet. It's the
Right,
degree
right,
you have
right.
that sort of mindset, you can't hold safe space for people. You can't empower people because you're too busy thinking, how can I look cool in front of this group of people, as
At that
opposed to,
point, you've turned it into more about you than rather the student.
yeah, it should be the student show, not the Darren show or the Danny show, right? This is their
Yeah.
time, not my time.
They don't want to see my show. My show's a shit show.
Yeah. Doesn't it involve like a gold lame thong and a pole?
That's on Monday nights,
Oh,
but Fridays is a whole different story.
okay, I don't even want to know.
I don't want to know either. So let's get back into since releasing your first edition of this book, what kind of feedback have you gotten, not only from like students or rather teachers that you know, but also teachers that you don't know, like anybody close to you and far from you? Like what kind of things what kind of things have you heard from people after reading this book?
Well, first, just the general response has been pretty overwhelming. When I wrote the book, I wrote it thinking, yeah, I would sell a few copies, but I didn't really expect it to do super well because it is a pretty niche audience. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of yoga teachers out there, but something like Urban Mystic is for students, it's for teachers, it's for people who are into all different kinds of yoga. Anybody who's ever thought about yoga, it's that's sort of the audience. And when I wrote this book, I thought this is just for yoga teachers, maybe studio owners, but for the most part, it's a pretty narrow group. But it's selling like crazy, and the emails I get are almost overwhelming. I'm actually trying to figure out a way that I can manage that in a different way.
Sure.
And that's a great problem to have. I'm not complaining.
Yeah,
But
yeah, totally.
I think what surprises me the most is how people are just really hungry. I mean, they're really excited about yoga, or they wouldn't have chosen to do a teacher training, become a yoga teacher, and try and put themselves out there. But when it comes to like that other piece, they're really a lot of skilled yoga teachers with regard to the sequencing and alignment and choosing the right music and all of that. But then it comes to like inviting people to their class or making money. How do you make money and not be a dick? Is a
Right,
pretty
right,
big
right.
question, because there seems to be the starving artist type of yogis that just never have two nickels to rub together. And then
Hmm.
there's the other, like the people who are just sort of strike you as a televangelist, always pushing something, selling something, and finding that middle path. I think we really struggle with. So that's been a lot of it. Just people saying, thank you. I've been trying to figure out like how to manage this aspect of the business or that aspect of the business. Um, so
I mean, I get that. It's tough, because you don't want to be, I mean, you have to make a living, right? You have to, in order for you to share your teachings or, for those of us that are super passionate about what we do, like, and this is what we do full time. I think sometimes if I didn't, if I didn't live in a monetary society, I would do it for free. This is the only thing I really want to do day in and day out. And I do find that same struggle. Like, how do I continue to offer the things that I want to offer and not be pushy and not make people feel like it's something that they have to do? You know what I'm saying? But also how to continue to sustain myself, because I live in San Francisco, which is, the most expensive city in the nation right now, and they teach yoga, which we all know we're not making millions.
I have a section in the book where I talk about the difference between commercialism and capitalism. And I think that for me, it was like this important realization. And that is, like, when you look at something that's basically useless, like a can of cola, you don't need cola. No one died because they couldn't get a can of cola, right?
Right.
And there's nothing nutritionally valuable in it. There's no real reason to drink it. And so companies like Coke and Pepsi, they need to manufacture a need, which means they need to spend a lot of money showing you images of sexy people drinking it and skipping through fields and holding hands and like having a good time and everybody liking them, to create a false narrative in your head that if you drink this product, you will be like these people. You'll be happy and healthy and all of that.
Sure.
But for yoga, the things that yoga gives us, it gives us better health. It gives us spiritual groundedness. It gives us a more focused mind, helps us manage our emotional lives and process our emotions. I mean, there's the list of things that yoga can do for us are pretty endless. And those are all human needs. They're baked into the cake. Every human wants to feel well in their body. Every human wants to feel less stress in their mind. Every human wants to feel more emotionally grounded and open, compassionate and loving. And some are better at finding it than others, but we all want those things. So the sell is pretty easy for us as yoga teachers. We don't have to lie. We don't have to twist arms. All you have to say is, do you want to feel better?
Right.
Do you want to feel more open, more grounded, more centered? Do you want to get more done at work? I mean, pick your angle, but none of it has to be untrue and none of it has to be pushy, because the answer is already there. Yes, of course I don't want to be sick all the time.
That makes it so much easier when you put it that way. I'm going to have you repeat that slowly. I'm just kidding. And write it up. Next time I'm going to
slowly. You don't have to buy the book.
That's very true. Next time I'm going to sell a retreat or something. I'm going to call you, put you on speakerphone, and have you reiterate that to everybody.
Well, it's true. People ask me, like, even when I'm just teaching regular classes, not just for teachers, like, how often do I need to meditate? And my answer is not, if you don't meditate every day, you're going to go to hell or some, guilt trip. I just say, just on the days that you want to feel really good.
That's a really good point.
None of us are perfect. We're all going to miss days when we don't practice or where we show up in our practice as sort of lackluster. We don't have a lot to give. But that's not the point. The point is, if you wake up tomorrow morning and you ask yourself the simple question, what kind of day do I want to have? I can guarantee you no one is going to say, I hope I have a really shitty day that's filled with stress, where I'm unfocused and don't get anything done, and I snap a lot and I kick the dog when I get home. No one says that. So what we're doing is we're providing that answer. We're saying, if you don't want to have that kind of day, or you want to have, we're all going to have frustrating experiences, but if you want to have a better reaction to those challenges, then get up and meditate. Get up and roll out your yoga mat, even if it's for 5 minutes. And when you do that, you'll find that your day will go better. You'll respond differently to the challenges of your day. And that makes it so much easier for people to get out of bed and say, I don't feel like rolling out my yoga mat. I don't feel like getting to Danny's class today. I don't really have time. I have this project. But when they can honestly answer that question, there's nothing left to sell. They may choose to show up at your class or not, but at least they're being conscious about it. And they're probably choosing to do yoga more often than they're not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When people ask me, even how often do they want to practice or should they practice? I'm like, well, just one, you have to listen to your body, but two, it's also, how does this make you feel? And how often do you want to feel like that?
Yeah.
It's a really good and easy point. Darren, I've got one more question for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
You are driving. Actually, let's say this. You have a billboard in the busiest intersection in the world, wherever that may be. What does your billboard say?
Breathe.
Not buy my book.
Breathe and buy my book.
Breathe and then buy my book.
No, I think that is the key that unlocks everything. It just as you're in a yoga pose that you're struggling with and you're mentally resisting, and then somewhere you remember to breathe, or the teacher reminds you to breathe, and all of a sudden that which was vexing, difficult, impossible, frustrating, pissing you off, is still all of those things, except for you're not reacting to it because you were breathing into it. And that doesn't end when you roll up your yoga mat. It extends into sitting in traffic, looking at that obnoxious billboard telling you to breathe. It extends into your relationships, into your work life, into even the things that you do that are challenging. If you like surfing, tennis, golf, going for a hike, all of those things are enhanced when you breathe, and yet so few of us do it. We do it unconsciously and shallow. And so if you just got everybody to stop, take a deep breath, the rest would take care of itself.
I love it. Darren, thanks so much for taking some time out to chat with me today. I am going to put your Yogi Entrepreneur book in the show notes so that the yoga teachers that are listening can take a look at the copy, maybe pick it up while they're and then put it on their iPhones or their devices. They can listen to it while they're walking to their classes or whatever it is. It's a really good book. I've read it. It's super awesome. I highly recommend it.
Well, I have to say before we go, I'm really, really proud of you. You stumbled into my yoga class, and when you first moved to the city, 4 years ago?
Almost 4 years ago. Yeah, I think February of next year will be 4 years.
Yeah, and you didn't know anybody, and you didn't have a teaching gig. I mean, you were from Southern California, and in 4 short years, you become one of the prominent teachers in San Francisco. And
you're too much.
I'm incredibly proud of you.
Well, thank you.
And all that because you read my book.
All that, you guys, listen. All that, I am living proof that I read this book, and that's how it happened.
Yeah. All you have to do is spoon with it at night. Put it under your pillow or spoon with it, and you'll win the lottery. It's pretty amazing.
I want that book again.
Thank you so much,
right,
Danny.
Until the next Yogi Misfit session, this is Darren and Danny saying peace out.